Hi, I'm here at 1221 Fairmount in Philadelphia, and there's a guy with the Billy Club right here.
If people are standing in front of a polling place in paramilitary uniforms, using racial slurs, and one had a nightstick in his hand, and he was hitting the nightstick into his open hand, if that wasn't voter intimidation, I don't know what is voter intimidation.
And my very first reaction was, this is some kind of joke, because this doesn't happen in America. You know, we don't have armed people at the polls. Well, that surely proved to be inaccurate, that it was in fact a real presence in the polls by a bunch of thugs. And then things started to turn, in my mind, toward this is probably breaking federal law. Section 11B of the Voting Rights Act says you cannot intimidate, threaten, or coerce voters or those aiding voters.
The two men at the polls were Jerry Jackson, a Democratic city committeeman, and King Samir Shabazz, a man known for racial hate speech.
I hate white people, all of them. Every last iota of a cracker, I hate it. Your enemy cannot make you free, fool. You want freedom? You're gonna have to kill some crackers. You're gonna have to kill some of their babies. Let us get our act together.
African American poll watchers told me that they were terrified of the Panthers. They thought a bomb was going to go off, that they were scared for their lives. So this is not a case where the evidence was flimsy.
King Samir Shabazz just was a little bit too strong, and he was caught out there at the polling place with the nightstick. Bush, it appeared, had his way finally in his last days. He had us.
The Justice Department filed a complaint against the new Black Panther Party. It was signed by Assistant Attorney General Grace Chung Becker.
I just got done litigating a Section 11B claim in the Mississippi Ike Brown case. So I knew the law. There was only probably less than 5 attorneys in the entire history of the country that have litigated a Section 11B claim, and I was one of them, and Coates was one of them.
However, unlike the Ike Brown case, the new Black Panther Party would not stand before a federal judge. The machine had taken control of the Justice Department.
It was filed, the new Black Panther Party, even though the chairman of the party is actually a member of the D.C. Bar, no response was filed. And we were at the point where a default judgment was going to be entered.
Nothing happens. We called up the Panthers and said, by the way, you haven't responded to this, you're going to be in default. And they kept ignoring it. They even had an attorney who never answered the complaint. It was amazing.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
Then the inauguration happens, and that's probably the most important part of the entire case.
And the Justice Department leadership changed into the hands of a black man by the name of Eric Holder, and they took a look at it and they threw most of everything out.
Unfortunately, the Obama administration stepped in at that point, and we were forced to dismiss the case against the new Black Panther Party.
A war erupted. They wanted the case to go away. They obviously did not like the Black Panther case. They lived through the Ike Brown case, so they were bitter about it. And they didn't want to see this case brought.
I was one of the team at the Washington Times when we broke the story that they had dropped the lawsuit or dropped the case that basically had already been won against these two new Black Panther thugs. We broke it.
Hillier and his team wanted to know if Obama political appointees overruled career lawyers at the Department of Justice. He approached the communications director, Tracy Schmaler, for an explanation.
I didn't have 4 words out of my mouth, and I was talking in a tone like this, very conversational, not accusatory, asking a question. I didn't have 4 words out of my mouth before she started yelling at me. Y'all are just gonna lie about us, and just almost unhinged yelling.
The Department of Justice was changing, and Adams was dealing with more than ideological differences. He felt the law itself was being compromised.
I had a great gig. I loved what I did. But here's what happened. I was subpoenaed and Chris Coates was subpoenaed to testify about what happened in this dismissal. And Justice stonewalled that, just like they're stonewalling everything since. Justice stonewalled our subpoenas and ordered us to ignore them, even though federal law says to interfere with a subpoena is a federal crime. I wasn't comfortable with that.
My name is Tom Perez, and I am the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Justice. Civil rights are a cornerstone of our country's foundation. They ensure that each of us can live our lives and pursue our dreams without discrimination.
Assistant Attorney General Thomas Perez testified before the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights that he was not aware of unequal enforcement of the Voting Rights Act.
There was a press report with specific instances, examples of people in your division, not all of them who are still there, who held the view that the voting rights law should never be enforced against blacks and other racial minorities. Did you take
if you have questions about people who work in the division, I am happy to have those questions submitted to the division, and we will take a look at any questions you might have. I thought that the subject matter of this hearing was what we did in the new Black Panther Party case. I'm having difficulty understanding the nexus.
The problem is you're not allowing us to talk to the people we've subpoenaed, the people who might have such evidence.
He had never heard of this crazy idea that there's people in the Justice Department who don't want to enforce the law equally. Well, the problem is Chris Coates and I had told him that just a day or two before. So for him to say that he had never heard of these things was not accurate. And he said that under oath. And as soon as he got done testifying, I wrote up a resignation letter and I resigned that very day.
The message that it carries, or potentially carries, is that if you're a minority and if you participate in intimidation or fraud, then you might not have to worry about the United States Department of Justice.
If you have that, then you don't have, then the elections don't really matter, because their mob violence will overrule the election. It means it doesn't matter how you vote or how many of you vote the way you do. If you can put a mob in the street to force the government to do what you want, then you win.